Alexis, you ready to go?
Yes, ready to go. All right, hi everyone, and let's take a quick look at what's happening on the fundamental side of things. As usual, I'm going to take a look at some of the articles that have been popping up. A lot of interesting stuff, and let me just share a screen. Um, Now, what I'd like to do is just run through a couple of headlines just to kind of get a brief overview of what has happened last week. So, lots of interesting stuff has happened last week. All right, so July 10th, US and European stocks rebound while the bond rally pauses. So something has happened in the bond market. We have July 8th, plunge in treasury yields reverberates around markets. Equities are churning and borrowing costs for corporations are tumbling. So that's interesting. You have global stocks drop as investors focus on slowing growth. So this is over at the stock market side. So I think as what Julian has mentioned, there are some moves, big moves in the stock market. Why is moving, or actually is causing it to move? I guess there's a lot of speculation going around. It could be a whole bunch of readjustment of their portfolios, as probably investors or the hedge fund managers are trying to figure out which is the next best asset to go into. So there is, I would say, a shakedown happening in the markets, which is always good, because I think from the forex side of things, it allows us to readjust our bias and see whether we can pick up the pairs that have gotten away from us in the past couple of weeks, right? So when I look at the just look at the pure stats, all right, just based again, a couple of headlines will give you a kind of a sentiment clue on what's happening. So we have here, British pound growth disappoints. This is 52 hours ago. So the British economy grew about 3.6% in the past 3 months to May of 2021. And we've looked at the British GDP. I'm just going to click into it. You can see a minus 1.6% from a 1.3 previously. So as much as markets are opening because of the vaccination going on, and everyone is looking forward to opening. I think we have Australia, who just went back into lockdown again. We have Malaysia, whose numbers are increasingly high. So there is a big question mark on, while there is a lot of optimism on whether or not markets will start to boost, because there is, I think everybody is like waiting at the starting blocks, getting ready to take the jump off. Like, as soon as the gates open, they're going to come out running. But I think a lot of things, we have that wrench thrown into the works, because while markets are trying to open up, the COVID numbers spike again. We have China doing this weird stuff. They're trying to not just crack down on Bitcoin. They are, cracking down on their tech side. So things are changing in on a pretty big way. And I think one reason China is crashing down, or it is kind of clamping down on their tech side, is because of money flow, right? China has always had a reputation of kind of under the table, being a little bit more controlling in terms of where the money goes. That they have a lot of restrictions on the inflows and outflows of money. And I think the tech sector will definitely be affected because of with everything opening up, with Bitcoin being in play, money is flowing fast and furious around. And I would say China likes to be in control, which actually brings me to this nice CNY USD chart. All right, so this is on a daily time frame chart. Now, I like this picture over here, because it is very curious. Over the past, I would say, month or so, we had China having the crackdown on the Bitcoin. You see the Chinese renminbi actually came off, right? And then we have another second round. I think on the daily time frame, we have another small little dip over here, probably because of the stock markets in terms of the tech stocks in China. They are trying to crack down on tech stocks as well, and another small dip over here. Now, what's interesting is if I just move this line over here. Okay, so I was trying to figure out how much will China allow its renminbi to weaken, or I wouldn't say devalue, but more of weaken against USD, right? Because USD is like the major tradable currency globally. So will China allow its renminbi to go beyond a certain level? And I am looking at a couple of levels. So let's go to the weekly time frame. Let me just scroll it up a bit to get the okay. And we are at a very interesting level, because if I just take this exact same blue line over here, and I'm just going to pull it all the way over here, it is at a very interesting level for me to kind of notice, right? So my question next will, whatever's been happening in China, will they actually allow their RMB, to hit the next level below this area? So this is an area which is a question mark for me, because there's a couple of things that are going to be tied into this. Mainly, as you know, China is a major exporter, right? So if China, the Chinese renminbi does weaken against the USD, there are going to be some of the currencies following suit. They're going to be, they're going to look at Australia, one of the closer, I would say, one of the closer partners, trading partners with China, will probably be affected as well. And that's what I always like to see as a proxy of this. All right, so I'm going to zoom on a little bit further. Okay, so again, if I just draw this out over here, okay, you can see that we're at a very interesting level on the renminbi charts. All right, we are at what I think is like a midline between the top and the bottom. I'm just going to scroll down. So we are at a kind of midline over here, which gets interesting, because it's either a fast, quick drop to the next level, or a nice bounce to the next level, right? But I think looking at how China is being really it is coming down really hard on this on its tech stocks, and it's not just tech stocks, it's Bitcoin, it's something's happening over there. All right, I don't know what, but something's happening over there, and I'm pretty my bias is pretty much on the downside of this, because I think even the technicals are kind of showing a nice weakening here on the weekly charts. So with that in mind, with a bias that something's happening over in China, what it means for me is I want to wait for the opportunities that's going to come. So of course, for this, I'm going to go back to the Aussie. All right. And with a potential bias of a weakening renminbi, my bias is on a weakening of the Aussie dollar. On the back of Aussie, being in a second lockdown, I'm not sure how that will affect the sentimentals, the sentiments, but I'm going to, let the Aussies, hopefully Ainsley and Geoff can give us some insight down there on their second lockdown. But my next question for the Aussie is, are we at a level that allows for that pullback, that dip? Because as you can see, Aussie had a lot of greens last week. All right, a lot of bounces on the last Friday last week. So if I am scrolling down just past the Aussies, I am just interested to see whether or not Aussie will go down further. And I know that there's a lot of that Aussie, in terms of its technicals, I'm just show you what I mean by that. You can see, let's go to Australia. In terms of fundamentals, you can see Australia has a small positive GDP, decent jobless rate, controllable inflation. If you compare it to the US of 5%, pound I think is 2+%. It looks like it's holding itself pretty decently. All right, but again, with all that's been happening in China, and with Australia going in its second lockdown, I am not sure if I'm not sure if the Aussie dollar can give us the bounce that I'm looking for. So my kind of what I'm waiting for is to see whether we reach a level where I can short the Aussie. All right, so really sorry to the Aussie friends out there, but I am waiting for a weakening of the Aussie. And of course, my favorite play is actually a weakening of the Aussie against the USD. All right, so I have been waiting for those of you who have followed me last week. Let me go back to the daily chart over here. Okay, swap a little bit. All right, so for those of you who have caught this last week, the first wave down, my next question is, will this break of this level give us the next level? And of course, my target is over here. And the targets come from a very purely technical level, right? But my bias is still towards the downside, especially for the Aussie dollar. Not sure if I will be right or wrong, but based on what we are seeing on the, I would say because China is like a global player on it, I'm not sure whether or not it will come to fruition, but I am definitely more towards a short on the Aussie bias. So I'm waiting for Aussie shorts next week, and that's pretty much what I'm waiting for. So that would be about it for me.
Cheers, Alexis. Thank you very much for that. We'll watch that Aussie with some interest. It is an interesting setup, isn't it, with some decent numbers in Australia, but that breakout in New South Wales looks in danger of getting out of control. And they've lost, I think, 2.3 billion they lost on the first 2 weeks of the lockdown.
Yeah.
Extending it again at the moment and strengthening it. People in Sydney are being told to not leave their homes at the moment, and that's very un-Australian. They've been a bit lax, not lax. They've been a little bit more relaxed in the way they do things than we have, and I'll be interested to see how that does play out over the next couple of weeks. This Delta variant continues to be if someone bailed out of a lot of stock positions and rebalanced last week, I do wonder if there's some concern that we don't have the reserves to deal with another COVID breakout or something that gets past vaccines. And I think some safety on the short side isn't a bad idea at the moment. I'm not saying we should all be short. I'm saying we should have some little plan in case it all falls quite quickly to pieces. Thank you for that, Alexis. Really do appreciate it. So we've had Julian do macro markets. We've had Alexis come in and do fundamentals.